Today, I really want to talk to you about something that's been on my mind just as the holiday season is upon us, if you will. And by the time you're listening to this, you will probably be in the thick of the holiday season. And it's this idea of authenticity and wanting to speak with you about why it's so difficult, hard, scary, uncomfortable for us as individuals to embrace our authenticity, but also as it relates to being around our family. And you are probably going to be around your family during the holiday season, or maybe you've chosen to forego that. Either way, this idea of authenticity is so important to you as an individual and you as a human. And I like examples, so I'm going to first give you an example. We have had clients in the past who have come to us and said, I truly believe that if I were diagnosed, I'd have sensory processing disorder. I want these things in my life. I'm craving certain things in my life, but certain sensory struggles are holding me back from getting what I so desire within this life. And then when we go really deep, we examine our past and their history and their family life. And it tends to look like a lot of staying quiet, shutting these individuals down, not understanding where they're coming from, and truly not having the space to be themselves. And so they struggle as adults and crave authenticity, but they struggle as adults to show up as themselves because that was never fostered in their younger life. That was never fostered as children. Now, the reason that I believe it is so incredibly hard to own who you are and step into that most authentic part of you and owning the pieces of you that feel wildly uncomfortable is because when you finally step into your most authentic self, and just FYI, finally learning to regulate your nervous system, you can no longer ignore your most authentic self, which means you can no longer ignore who you actually are in this life, right? We use that word authentic and wow, that's a kind of a buzzword, but it's truly just owning who you are and not apologizing for it and embracing it. You must, like, that is one of the precursors of this work, is you must step into that. You must be okay with leaning into that. You must be okay with exploring that for yourself. And the reason that we have such a difficult time and push it away is because when you finally step into who you are, when you finally step into your most authentic stuff, what that requires you to do is then face a lot of fears. It's really facing a lot of fears of, okay, I know who I am, right? Let's say you finally do the hard work on yourself, but then to show up for yourself and be that authentic person outside, let's say, the walls of your home or in your business or with your family, with your friends, with your loved ones, with your partner, that is what sparks so much fear, because there is so much fear of rejection. There is so much fear of abandonment. There is so much fear of judgment. There is so much fear of not being accepted. And we crave, as much as we wish we didn't, we crave acceptance. We crave validation. We crave feeling we fit in, right? We crave those things so desperately with our friends, our family, our loved ones. And probably the highest on the list is our spouse and our family. And I would say that so often I have clients who can feel it and do this work on themselves, and then they can start to see it when they are with their family. However, they sometimes revert back, right? They sometimes revert back to their old selves. And I would say even I am still a work in progress. You know, when I first started showing up as my authentic self, it did show up on social media. It did. That was my outlet to try on new things and to explore and to show up as me. And it was extremely, extremely uncomfortable for some of my family. There's no other way to say it. But what I will say is that it forced us to have conversations that we wouldn't otherwise have had if I hadn't leap. And so I would say that our relationships are farther along and more authentic within my family because of that. Now, I grew up in a home and I grew up in the South. So it was a lot of smiling and shoving feelings under the rug and just continuing to be okay. No matter what was going on in your life, just continuing to be okay. And I would say I still feel that even when I go down to New Orleans for holidays, of that mentality of just, hi, oh, I'm great, just very surface level and trying to maintain the picture, if you will. And growing up for me, I was the youngest and I had a very strong, all three of my family members, my mom, dad, and sister, all had very strong personalities and opinions. And so I somehow became the class clown, if you will, of the family. So let's say we would always go on like big trips during winter break. And my dad is one where we would all get hungry and he'd have to see every single restaurant. But hold on, let's just go one more block. Let's just go one more block and look at the menu. And at this point, we're all hangry. And I would be the one that was goofing off, trying to make everyone laugh and enjoy because we were all so freaking hungry, but we had to appease my dad. And so I learned how to keep the peace. I learned how to be a chameleon and morph. I learned how to be really okay with not having an opinion. And I grew up with a really strong sister opinion wise, and I grew up with a really strong mom opinion wise. And so I felt my sister and mom's opinions were better and smarter, and they knew more than me than my own. And I absolutely dimmed my light. I absolutely dimmed my authenticity. I absolutely was afraid of my authenticity. And I grew up wanting the satisfaction of knowing that my mom and sister and dad, but mostly my mom and sister. My dad was, I think, a little bit more accepting, I would say. My mom and sister weren't, but I think it was just the energy I felt. And so I grew up really longing for that. And now that I'm 39, I'm widowed. I have 2 kids. I have a new partner, not really new partner, but I have a partner, and my life is completely different from what it was 10 years ago. I would say that reminding myself to show up as myself and being able to just be me, even in front of my family, is something that I continue to be conscious of, because there's still this pattern, because I lived with my mom and sister for so many years, that there's still this pattern of wanting to keep the peace or not wanting to ruffle feathers. Or there's even this dynamic in terms of maybe my mom and sister are used to me just saying, sure, we can do whatever, and just being the easy go lucky, go with the flow, and never really having an opinion or saying, hey, that's not going to work for me. And I would say that it's not quite comfortable for my mom and sister at times, because they are used to the go with the flow, keep the peace, class clown Brooke, who never wants to ruffle feathers. And part of being authentic to yourself, part of showing up for yourself and owning who you are, is sometimes saying the hard things or doing the hard things or taking care of yourself or putting yourself first or owning disagreements, whatever it is for you. And that can be wildly uncomfortable, that they choose not to do it. They choose to, I don't want to say stay small, because I don't want you to feel I'm digging at you if you're like, oh my God, that's so me. It's not that you're choosing to stay small, but you're choosing to live your life, and you're choosing to have others dictate your life for what is best for you. And one of the coolest things is we usually do a Thrive in September where it hits right around Thanksgiving. And we either, depending on the year and depending on the dates, we either do it through Thanksgiving and we'll either take a week off, or we'll reconvene for the last few weeks, or we finish right before. And it is so incredible because it's always landing on towards the end of our program. it is so incredible to see when these individuals come back and they tell us stories of how they showed up for themselves in the most authentic way that they've never experienced before with their own family. It felt slightly different or it felt slightly uncomfortable for them, but they still did it because they knew that that was what was best for them based off of being in this program and doing this work and really giving it their all and moving through this journey. And it's super, super cool to watch and witness and see. I really wanted to talk about this because I think so many long to own who they are. And I think some individuals don't even know who they are anymore because I would say I've 100% lost myself because I, went to college, then I went to grad school and I was focused on my career. And then I found the checklist of a husband because that's what I thought I should find. And then I got married and then I moved and then I jumped again into my career. And then I, paused for a little bit, but then we had babies and that just kept going. And I think I finally woke up one morning and is this it? This can't be my life. I don't feel I really exist in this life. I don't really feel I know where I fit in. And that's quite scary. But there's so many individuals who stay in that place rather than do something about it because yes, it's scary to not know who you are, dim your light, and not live out your most authentic life, but it's also wildly uncomfortable and scary to think about stepping forward and doing that journey and owning your most authentic self because we don't want the disapproval of our family. We don't want the abandonment of them, or we don't want the disapproval of our partners or them looking at us like, what is going on with you? Like you've gone crazy. Like this is not who you are. And the hard part is it actually is who you are, but you've chosen for so long to suppress that. I think the identification and awareness of I understand why I'm not choosing to go all in. I understand why I'm choosing do some digging and lean into my most authentic self. I think it's extremely important to identify the why as to why you are choosing not to. Is it because of fear of judgment or arguing or fear that someone won't love you anymore? What is the thing that's holding you back? And there can be many bumps along the road if you choose to step into that experience and if you choose to learn how to sensory and emotionally regulate yourself and figure out how your brain ticks and figure out how and what you need and figure out how to support yourself. And that means being authentic to yourself. It is slightly uncomfortable because others may not understand because they don't have your brain. Your brain may need different things than their brain. But at the end of the day, I find that it all boils back down to mental health. 1,000 million trillion %. If you are choosing to live a life that is not suiting you, if you are choosing to live a life because it has been prescribed to you, if you are choosing to live a life because that is what has been thought of in your brain of this is what it should look like, this is what it needs to look like, this is what it must look like, I find that those are the individuals who begin to spiral into anxiety and depression because they're always trying to keep up with this facade, this costume, this lifestyle, or you could even say keeping up with the Joneses, right? It's this ability to try and put on a front of everything's fine, everything's great, busting your ass and living a life that's not authentic to you. And when you do that for far too long, there can be severe, severe consequences. And I can't tell you the amount of people who we've worked with and they're either miserable in their job, they're miserable or unhappy in their current dynamic, not current relationship, but the dynamic that is current within their partnership. They're unhappy with the judgment from friends and feeling they need to do certain things, or they're unhappy with the way that they're parenting because they feel they should parent this way rather than how they want to parent. And it absolutely can make you spiral into such a dark, dark place. And I think for some, it can be the ultimate thing that breaks a person in terms of not showing up for themselves and not living their life the way that they wish they could. And I want you to know that if it's fear that's stopping you, the fear in itself is your brain trying to protect you because your brain craves structure, stability, and control. That's what your brain craves. So if you're like, I think I'm going to do something different, and you try it out, and your brain is like, oh, why'd you do that? Right? You're going to feel a sort of way. You're going to have some feelings. But that doesn't necessarily mean that those feelings are wrong. It doesn't necessarily mean that you should stop. What you need to be able to do is be able to emotionally regulate through the discomfort in order to say, okay, I'm safe. This is okay that I am choosing a different path. And is okay to be uncomfortable, is okay. But I would say that that is the thing that holds so many back from choosing the life that they so want. And the fear, even of the unknown, of what will this look like? And even if you are listening to this and you have chosen to do this work, and you have chosen to learn how to regulate yourself and stepped into your most authentic self, it doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't still bumps along the way, or that there aren't still triggers every now and then, or that you find yourself in a position where you're kind of going backwards or backtracking, or maybe you're a brand new fresh flower that's just bloomed, and this information and this journey for you is also new, that you kind of stay away from some who you feel might hurt you, because you're taking it very, very slowly, and it is a process, and it does take time to shift and change. And so you're very protective of your emotions and space at that time, and all of that is okay. If you're feeling any of that, all of that is okay. Now, as we head into the next few weeks of the holiday, I want to remind you that it is okay to do you. And what I mean by that, and I usually remind you of this every year, is that it is okay to figure out what feels best and right for you, not figuring out what feels best and right for everyone else and doing that, but figuring out, hey, do I want to go to this party, or do I want to travel to be with my family this year, or the in-laws, or do I want to just stay home and relax? I think a lot of people forget that winter break is kind of supposed to be our hibernation time. It is supposed to be a time where we settle in, we settle down, we don't do much, we relax, we take a break to kind of rev up for the next season, right? And now it's all about wrapping presents, finishing the list, checking it twice, going to all the parties, getting the outfits, and absolutely, completely dysregulating yourself. And maybe drinking too much and eating too much. And it can wreck you. And so, as part of you showing up for yourself and being authentic, I want you to really lean into what does that mean for you this holiday season and moving into January. I don't really talk about New Year's resolutions. I don't like New Year's resolutions. I don't think that's necessary. I think if you're continuing to do the work every year and you're giving yourself a 3 to 5% shift every year, then you're continuing to own who you are. Because making that New Year's resolution is a commitment for a year, and no one is perfect. And I find that so many people start, but then don't finish strong, and then they give up if it's not so perfect, right? Because we all have some perfectionism inside of ourselves. And so I just want you to think about, what would you for this year to look like and feel like for you, instead of what are my goals for this year, but what would you like it to look like and feel like? And that will continue to bring you to your most authentic self, of owning those pieces and parts of you, and maybe trusting in the discomfort, maybe trusting in the ownership of the fear, maybe trusting in, I know that this may feel uncomfortable with my family or my friends or my loved ones, but being able to show up for myself in the long run, even if it's uncomfortable in real time, I know long term I'm going to be extremely proud of myself for doing the thing, saying the thing, owning the thing, and whatever that means for you. So this holiday season, I want you to really challenge yourself to show up for you. And maybe that means, instead of waiting in line to get the honey baked ham, you go get a Costco lasagna, or you order some pizza. Who knows what that looks like? But whatever that means for you, I hope that you own it. And I hope that you don't doubt yourself. And I hope that you choose to embrace it and be proud of yourself for owning all of you in whatever way that looks like. And even if it's very small, small things, right? Hey, I'm going to go take a walk, and leaving the kids with the in-laws, and getting some space for yourself and owning what you need as part of yourself, and feeling guilty because you're like, oh gosh, I really need a walk, but I feel so guilty stepping away, but then you do it anyway. Even if it's something super small, I want you to lean into yourself and remind yourself that you are so damn worthy of it. You're so damn worthy of showing up for yourself and owning whoever you are, right? And I promise you that will take you to and towards the most beautiful mental health, because you will finally be living a life for yourself rather than for everyone else. And that can be difficult as you step into being around lots of friends and family during the holiday season. So I just wanted to remind you of that and have grace for yourself. And I hope you have an awesome, awesome holiday season. And until next time, XOXO, Dr. B.